I showed you this in the waning moments of our class on Friday. Illustrator has a pattern tool. Back in the day, you had to make your own patterns, but now Illustrator will help you make them with a pattern tool. So I got this piece of clip art. I didn't do this. This is from Adobe. It's all stock. Nia asked the question in class, how do you make a pattern not look so repetitive? And the answer is you make the starting tile bigger. This is the tile. The tile is the part of the pattern that is the single unit that when you repeat it, it becomes a pattern. So I'm going to grab everything. The other way I could have done that is if I put my finger on the shift key, shift click, one by one. And you'll notice, as I've mentioned in class, every one of these is a little group, right? The artist started small, grouped, and as they went, so that everything is a group. So let me grab it all. I'm going to go to Object, Pattern, Make. Now, two things are going to happen simultaneously. I get a message saying that a new pattern has been added to the swatches panel. Any changes while in pattern editing mode will be applied to the swatch upon exit. And this set of controls pops up here. All right, we're going to need those. So let's hit OK. And we notice that here's the new pattern. I can rename it if I like to. If I double click on it, I can call it Autumn Harvest Pattern and call it whatever I like instead of just new pattern, which is a pretty crummy name. Now, the other thing that happened is the pattern options box popped up. And let me just back up. So you say, well, what's all this stuff on the screen? This is Illustrator showing you how the finished pattern will look. And if you come down here to dim copies, I think that helps to show you a little bit better the fact that this is all extra. And this, here in the middle, that's your pattern. Let me move it over so you can see. See that? Now, let's look at some of the pattern controls because we're not done yet. You can change the way that the tiles sit together. This is a simple grid. There's a tile here, a tile here, a tile there, a tile there. It's just a simple box pattern grid. This is brick by row. You can see what happens where, if you look at the little diagram, you can see it too. They got offset. So there's one row of pattern tiles here, another row of pattern tiles here. They got pushed to the left. See how it sticks out? Another row of pattern tiles here. Whoops, sorry. So the grid is changing. We can do the grid by column. And again, if you look in here, you can see a little tiny diagram of it. Now what's happening is instead of the grid moving horizontally, the grid is moving vertically. It's another way to kind of create that randomness that we were talking about. Or we could do hex by column, or we can do hex by row. Again, now it's turning the tile pattern into a hexagon. And you can see in this case, what's happening is pieces of the pattern are actually sitting on top of each other. I'm going to go back to grid. Now, you can edit this. You can move things around. You can, if I put my finger on the option key, I can duplicate that pumpkin. I can move this out here. I can move it in if I want to. And you'll notice that the machine is showing me what's happening. All right. I encourage you to play with these things. Something else that you can do is you can put a colored box behind. If I were to grab a color, and if I go up to Object and I say Send to Back, see what I can do? I can add a colored background to my pattern. Again, you have to play with it to see what the pattern will allow. Excuse me. At this point, this pattern has a transparent background. So if I were to put this over another flat of color, that flat of color would show through. But I can add my own colored background if I want to. Now, some of the other things that you can do is here. This is the width of the tile. It's measuring the width of the pattern tile. It's this many pixels by this many pixels. If I say size the tile to the art, you notice that it immediately jumps to the outside of all of the images. See how it's past that blue line? How it's past, and if I take that and move it in, see the blue line move in? The machine is measuring all of my little objects. And it's saying, okay, you're making the pattern tile smaller, so everything's going to move in. And it'll only come in as close, it won't overlap anything, is basically what I'm saying. If I turn that off, and I change these numbers, instead of 3033, if I say 2000, see how everything overlaps? So you can really get granular with how much things overlap. You can change the order of the overlap down here with these buttons. You can change how many copies of the tile you see if it makes it easier for you. You can show the edges of the tile or not. That's that blue box that's happening. Okay, so let's say I'm fine. I did my tile and I like it. I like my pattern. So I'm going to come up here and say done. What happened? My pattern disappeared. The answer is you're not done yet, okay? You're going to take these elements and put them over on the pasteboard. Now I'm going to make a box. I'll make no stroke. I still have to go to the pattern swatch in my swatch menu and fill it with, just like it was a color, fill it with this pattern. Excuse me. Now, if I wanted the pattern to become smaller inside the box, I would take my scale tool and I'd come back here and I would put my finger on the option key. Remember when we first learned how to use the scale tool? So that we could get this box. I'm going to scale the pattern 25%. Here's what I'm going to do. These two boxes. I don't want to transform the object. The object is the outside box. I want to transform the pattern, which is inside the box. So this isn't checked. This is checked. And there's my pattern. And if I look at it and I say, it's too matchy-matchy. I'm not crazy about it. I can go in here and double click and boom, I'm back inside the pattern organizer. And I can go in and make it more random. The more stuff inside the pattern, the more random the pattern becomes. So if I come in here, for example, and get my reflect tool, put my reflect tool right here, put my finger on the option key, and say, give me a copy along a vertical axis. Now I've doubled the size of my tile, right? I have two tiles, and I can go in here and move this stuff around. Maybe I'll delete some of it so it's not so matchy-matchy, and I'll hit done. And now when I scale it, I'll make it 25%, not the object, just the pattern. The pattern is even busier than it was before. Now you can see the repeat of the pattern. And so what you could do if you really wanted it to look random is you could take some of these original images in the tile, scale them down, and I'm going to say object, arrange, bring to front, and lay them on top and be super random about it. So you can enhance your pattern if you want. But play around with patterns. So for your homework, I want you to create a pattern. I want you to fill a box with it. You can do it just like I'm doing it here. And then I want you to duplicate the box. I want you to duplicate the pattern. Look, I'm clicking on my I'm clicking on my pattern swatch. Duplicate the swatch. Now I have two patterns. And you're going to go into that second pattern and you're going to change the colors. I want you to change the pattern only by changing colors. I want you to use what you know about color theory to make a completely different pattern. So maybe this time I will put a box on the bottom. Hang on. If that blue square is my tile, I don't want to fill it. I want to be careful. I filled a pattern with a pattern. And I arrange and I send to back. And you can see that some of these things are disappearing. Make it warmer, make it hotter, make it faster, make it slower. manipulate the pattern just by using color. All right? Put those in your folder Tuesday night so I can take a look at them. All right. Email me or Slack me with questions.